Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with Jon Iannotti, and we're going to be talking about how to monetize every lead. Try to monetize every lead. And Jon is a deal architect, and that's what he teaches and that's what he practices. We're going to talk about a lot of different ways to monetize leads that you might not be using right now. Little side note: Jon was on my Flip Nerd podcast a long time ago. I always my admin prepares some show notes for me, so it was almost 11 years ago. Hard to believe. We've been running the podcast for, I guess, coming up on 13 years. So that's a long time ago. A lot of things have happened in the world since that last time.
It seems like yesterday. You know, It's crazy. When you told me the date, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to see you. So
good.
I'm excited to talk about the show today. I'm always intrigued by creative acquisitions and using creative strategies for making deals happen. Mm-hmm. And before we jump in, though, Jon, you've got a rich history. Maybe tell us about your background a little bit.
Oh wow, I've had several lives. So I started out years ago as a policeman. Worked my way up to chief of police, and I loved what I did. I loved it. But I had 2 little kids, wife, and I was making very little money, very little. In fact, a wholesale deal today could probably double my salary, what I made as a policeman. So I got out of that, went into a steel mill in Western Pennsylvania, and spent about 24 years in there. I hated every single day of it. I enjoyed the people, but I didn't like being there. It wasn't me. And I felt I needed to be doing something. Well, it just so happened.
And was that to make more money, essentially, or?
Well, I went into the mill to make more money. Yeah, I mean, pushing a broom in the mill, I made 2.5 times what I was making as a policeman.
Wow.
So it was crazy.
Yeah.
But again, I loved what I did as a policeman, and I give all my support to police today. I mean, it's just I would have loved to have continued that, but I needed more income with the young family, so we went into the mill, and then I just, like I said, I didn't care for being there, so I felt like I needed to be doing something that I would help some people, like I was with policing. So I actually got one of those late night infomercials, and I bought the program. And
who was it back then?
Oh, that was old Carlton Sheets.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were they were cassettes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I actually wore the cassettes out listening to them, and finally did a deal his way. And I said, there's got to be something different. And then I heard about a RIA in Pittsburgh. So I went to the Pittsburgh RIA, and those guys, they said, oh, you got to go to Columbus, Ohio. There's this big convention coming up in 2 weeks. And so my wife and I said, let's go. So we went there. They had 11 national speakers, and we came home with 11 programs.
Wow.
We bought everything. We were information sponges. We wanted to learn everything we could about real estate. So it took me about 3-4 months to get through the materials, and I tweaked a few things and used a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and did a deal. And I think I made like $30,000 on that first deal. And it's like, whoa, hey, this is pretty cool. So then it just started getting better and better. Every day I'd get out of work, I'd go talk to sellers and I'd show properties and what have you. And before you know it, I was telling my wife, I said, you know what? It's costing us money, me going to work every day. And she said, well, quit. Well, she only had to say that one time. I immediately got in my vehicle, went down to the mill, and I said, guys, I'm done. See you later. Bye. They said, you'll be back. And I said, I don't think so. My first week out of the steel mill, I had three closings. I made uh, 35,000, 38,000, and 32,000. And I'm like, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be okay. So from there, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. We keep going to trainings. We still go to trainings because you never know what you might learn. You know,
Yeah, you got to be a lifelong student in this business, right? Or
yeah.
really in any business.
Oh yeah. I mean, we were just at one probably a month ago, and it was like, this is different. We like this stuff, so we're going to implement some of that into what we're teaching as well. But that's the background. Now, you know, I was the dog and pony show for 15 years for one of the big gurus out there, and because we're doing deals where other people weren't. So we've over the years we've probably and I bought my first place in 1978, I think it was. Um, since then, we've done several thousand properties over the years. In fact, the number's so big, I don't even like to say it because it doesn't sound real. But we've done a ton of deals. We in 2014, we actually were approached to go out and start teaching. Well, we have been approached since 2003, and we kept saying, "Nah, we don't want to do that. We're doing deals. We don't want to teach." And we kind of saw what was going on with the speaking industry, and it just wasn't us. It just didn't sit right. So 2014, they asked again, and I said to my wife Stephanie, I said, "Look, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it our way, not the typical guru way."
Yeah.
And so we created a system. Um, I originally created a system that I gave to my mentor. It was called ACT, and that's Agreeable Contract Terms. That was for motivated sellers. And then in 2014, the market changed again, which everything is cyclical. And we created what we call REACT, which is reverse engineered agreeable contract terms. And we did that for probably 7 years, eight, maybe eight. And then we decided, well, let's marry the two programs together, ACT and REACT. And now we call it CATS, which is Complete Agreeable Terms System. Uh, it just, uh, we give everybody everything that we have, that we've learned over the years. Uh, in our system, the main complaint I have about our system, there's way too much information in here. And it's like, well, it's, 30,
It's
40 years.
complete.
Yeah,
First letter is C, complete.
that's it. And again, as the markets change, we change, and we'll put that into the system, and they get it. They don't have to pay extra. Um, like right now, we've spent the past year and a half building our short sale component to the system, um, and we're in the process now of putting in our note buying component to the system. So, and they'll get that. They don't have to pay anything extra. They're not going to pay an astronomical price to get into the system. Um, I mean, we could charge that, but we're to the point that give back. It's not all take. You got to give back once in a while. So we made our system complete. We made it inexpensive compared to other systems, and it's lifetime. Um, Another thing they get is a once a month call with me, and we do a big Zoom call, and everybody gets on. We discuss what's going on, what we're seeing, what we're doing, if they have deals they're working, and what they want to discuss. Any questions they may have. They have email access to me. Um, Probably 98 out of 100 of the emails that are answered by us is by me. If I'm on a plane or something, then my assistant will pick up in the slack. But it's they can email me anytime, and usually get back to them within half an hour to an hour at the most.
Yeah.
And we're very very hands on with our members.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the things you do to basically monetize every lead that you either, practice and preach. So
Mhm.
let's kind of jump into some creative strategies that you use in your business.
Well,
Um,
some of the ones that we're using today, which we're starting to see more creative terms coming back in again,
yep.
is of course taking over subject to.
Yep.
Um, lease if they don't want to give up the deed, then we do maybe a lease option with them, and then sandwich lease option it back out. We'll do seller. We'll get them to do seller financing on the free and clears, and they have it's free and clear, but they want the cash. What we'll do is we'll get them with one of our mortgage brokers and get them a new loan on the property. They get the cash, we get the house and the payments on the new loan.
Mhm.
So
And is
that
that where, so let's maybe jump into each of those. So with like lease options, maybe just share kind of high level. We'll go through a little bit of a mini training here, maybe like
mhm.
how that typically works for you, like what the structure of a lease option.
Well, of course, with a lease option, I'm going to try and structure it that I can stay in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to make the numbers work for me. If my seller wants more and more of that monthly spread, or they want more, um, maybe a shorter term, whatever, then I'm going to have to possibly back out of being in the middle, and then I'll just sandwich it out to somebody else that they can take over the lease with the option to buy it. Um, I always try to get my seller taken care of first. Okay, if they're happy, the deal's going to go smooth. So we always try to get the seller taken care of first. If we can make money in the middle by staying in the middle, great. If we can only make money by maybe taking an option release fee, we'll do that and let somebody else go into agreement with the seller. So it just depends on the numbers. It's all comes down to numbers with this business.
Yep. Yep. Let's talk about seller financing a little bit, how you typically structure those deals.
Well, there's two ways I do it. Number one is if I like the property and I'm going to keep the property, then of course I want to try to always get my payment down to where it's doable for me to put a tenant buyer in the property and still make money on the deal. The other way is um, if we don't really care for the property, we don't want to keep it for our own portfolio, then we'll structure the note to where a note buyer will buy the note and pay them off. Uh, it's both ways. Seller financing. Now again, uh, I don't care. I always say I don't care what I pay for the property. I need to make the total PITI uh, doable, either for me or for my tenant buyer on the back end.
Yep.
So uh, if I can give somebody, let's say they just round numbers, they want $100,000 for the house, and we come in and we say, well, um, I can maybe I can maybe do that. I like the house. I want to keep the house, but you know what? How about if I give you 110,000? And of course, they'll look at me like I got three heads. And they're like, yeah, we'll do 110. And I'm like, well, if you do it my way, I'll give you 110,000. And then they'll say, well, what is that? Well, then what it is I structure the seller financing as um, principal only payments. So that's a zero interest loan. I'm giving them 10,000 more than what they wanted. So that basically that's the interest.
Right.
But if it's a principal only loan, you know as well as I do that if you're paying principal, it pays down quickly.
Sure. Yeah.
See, So I
And
like to do
that's
that.
over a term, and then what are you typically doing with those? You're wrapping them, or you're is that what you're typically doing? Is wrapping it and reselling to somebody
It
else?
depends on the locality. It could be a wrap. It could be a lease option, sandwich lease.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about for those that don't know, talk about what a sandwich lease is. By the way.
Well, a sandwich lease would be you're selling your house and you will lease option it to me for this price, and then I will lease option it back out to somebody else at a higher price, purchase price and monthly, so that I can make a spread on it. So I can stay in the middle, make a spread, get the NROC, the non-refundable option consideration up front, and then get the back end profit whenever they do cash us out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then how about sub two? Like, what are you doing from a sub two perspective? And obviously, there's a lot of mortgages out there with low interest rates that
Mm-hmm.
maybe makes this maybe more appealing than other periods in the real estate cycle. But talk a little bit about what you're doing with sub twos.
It was probably right around 2015 or so. I kept saying, boy, I can't wait for that next downturn because there's going to be some beautiful low interest loans that we can take subject to. And that we have. I've taken several at like 2.7 or something like that, 3.5. And, for whatever reason, if it's a divorce or job loss, whatever, they need to get out and they need to get out now. Then we take over the underlying loan on that as far as the payments. The loan stays in their name. We get the deed and we own the property. It's it. I remember. I mean, you remember too, taking subject twos of 9.5%. I mean, back in the day when that's what it was, and
Yeah.
today even it's 7 or 6.5, 7. People are complaining about that, and I'm like, dang, that's still low.
Right.
But yeah, if I can take over payments on a property, I've got no problem doing that whatsoever. Now you might be able to. Most of them we take over. We just take over the loan, the payments. We don't have to give the seller anything. They just want done. But they may want something. Well, if they do want something, then we can structure that. We can maybe give them the cash up front, or we can maybe make payments to them, or maybe they agree to take payments when the property sells. It's all negotiable and depends on the property and the sellers.
Yeah. So how do you, a couple questions for you. Like, how do you decide which of these avenues to go down? I know it depends a lot on the seller situation and what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you, as the owner of a business, like it's sometimes hard to teach people that work for you all these different things, like where they can get creative. Like I found in my mind, if for me, my ultimate goal is always a cash buy. We buy for cash and we buy deep.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put on our creative hat if we have to. But it's always been hard to teach one of my acquisitions people the way to go out and do that.
I bought, or my best acquisitionists have been, uh, they have a sales background. Okay, so whether it be in mortgages, um, I had one who was doing gas and oil leases in the past, so he was very good. It just if they have a sales background, then they can talk to people because this is a people business. As much as people try to do this business behind a computer, you can't. I mean, you've got to, it's a people business. You have to have a rapport with that seller. You have to be able to talk to the potential buyers. And, I, I like the idea of doing everything virtually and all that kind of stuff, but in reality, I prefer to reach out and touch the people and let them know that we are real. We're not, somebody from California and we're trying to buy a place in New Jersey. I mean, it just,
Right.
it just, in my book and my success, we've said you got to. It's a people business. You got to get out there and build that rapport with people.
Right. Yep. Yep. So let's talk about note buying. So how you kind of what those deals typically look like.
Well, we market for people who have or holding mortgages, and then we'll talk to those people. We'll figure out what their needs are. Maybe we'll buy uh, the whole note, or we may buy a part of the note. Maybe so many payments. Um, it depends on what their need is. Uh, let's say we buy a note that is let's say one is 10% out there interest. Uh, so we'll buy it at the 10%, but then we'll get another person to come in and buy from us maybe 2 or 3% higher, which they will do.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, they prefer, people prefer the low mortgages, but if they can't get a mortgage, then, they'll pay as long as, and my golden rule is I like to keep payments on anything uh, at or very near what the total PITI would be. And total PITI is principal, interest, taxes, insurance, HOA fees, anything else that might attach to the property as a monthly cost. So
Right.
that's the total PITI. And I want to keep it at or near uh, that amount. And then I can take it up a little bit more to my end user or end buyer.
Right.
But if we can keep it close, and I want that to also be near market rent. So if the
Right. Right.
market
Right.
rent is 1,500 a month, and my total PITI is say 1,200 a month, then I've got a $300 a month spread at least.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And let's talk about short sales. So
Hmm.
those are back, I guess. I'm curious to see like how you're feeling, like what that looks like, kind of outlook wise, and how you're typically like what that looks like these days.
Well, here's the thing with the shorts. The mortgages that are in default right now, there's more of them than there was in 2008.
Wow.
So, are the banks, bringing those in? No, they can't, because every time they take one back, then that goes as a negative on their balance sheet, and they can't loan out that amount plus or times 10. So they're not taking them back right at the moment, but they are in. There's lots of them out there in default right now. I think we have probably in the neighborhood of around 40 to 50 that we're working right now around the country. And what we've done is we went out and we've created our own negotiating team. And our negotiators actually were loss mitigators, vice presidents of two of the top three banks in the country. And they've done over 5,000 short sales for the banks. So now they're working for us.
Okay.
And
Wow.
and the nice thing about that, Mike, is you don't have to put all that paperwork together anymore, because these guys know how to get right to the decision makers, and they bypass all that garbage.
Oh.
So that's one of the components now that's a part of our CAT system, and it's picking up. We're starting to see more and more members submitting short sales to us,
Yeah.
and I think that's going to be a big deal for us and our members here in the very near future.
So if a homeowner is in default and they kind of get the sense that the bank's not going to foreclose on them for the reasons you said, what's their motivation to not just park it and stay there for as long as they can? Like what's the motivation there?
Well, we can go talk to the sellers. We let them know that, look, you right now you have um, late payments on your credit. That's bad, but it's not that bad. If the bank decides to foreclose, now you're going to have a foreclosure. That's a lot worse. So what we can do is we'll negotiate with the banks and get them to get it paid as agreed, and they'll take their discount. We'll make our money to our selling it to our end buyer. And the other thing is, a lot of agents they'll market properties as short sales on the MLS,
Okay.
but they're not doing short sales. They're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
what's called a short payoff. So once they get somebody interested in the property and they get an offer, they submit that to the bank. Hey, I got this. I'm an agent. I've got this amount from this buyer. Will you accept it? If they say yes, then it closes. But here's the negative to that. It's called a deficiency judgment. So let's say the loan was for 200. The bank will take 100,000 instead of 200. Well, that extra 100,000 that they took a loss on, they'll send the seller, the homeowner, a 1099 on that, and they'll have to pay on that
It's
$100,000 that
counted
they.
as income.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, so what we do is our negotiators get that wiped out. So we get the lenders to accept it as paid as agreed with no deficiency judgment, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's how we sell it to them.
Yeah. So John, I mean, the types of stuff that you do is the interesting thing about that is you have different tools to use in any market or for really any sort of situation. And so I'm going to ask you about your outlook. You may not really care ultimately because you got a tool for wherever we end up at. But what is your outlook for the real estate market here for investors over even the next year or two, let's say?
Well, I think in the near future, things are going to be a little slow as far as being able to get people to buy. As far as getting the sellers, I think they're going to be very uh, prevalent. We're going to
Yeah.
have a lot of sellers. I think, I'm in Southwest Florida, and we went from a 3-day MLS market to we're over 90 now. So things have slowed, but the thing is, when the market slows like that, that's when people get a little bit more motivated if they want to sell. Now we're
Right.
seeing a lot of sellers that don't want to sell because they got the nice low interest loans, which totally understand. But if they want out if they were moving somewhere else, or they lost their job, they're getting divorced, whatever, then we can help them get out from under that mortgage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine this year is going to be kind of slow, but next year I'm thinking things are going to pick up and we're going to be booming again with more retail stuff. But at the moment, for the rest of this year, I do believe it's going to be a little slow. And of course, you know, there's a wild card out there, as to what's going to happen with the economy.
No
So,
doubt.
but I think it's all going to work out to the good. I think everybody's going to come out on top. It's just going to take a little time here. It doesn't happen overnight.
Might be a bumpy road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, John, thanks for sharing with us today. If folks want to learn more about you or connect in any way, like where can they go?
Well, I'll give you two websites. They can go to buy, and that's BUY, catsnow.com, or they can go to cats, REI.com. Either one of those will get you into our sales system, and they can learn more. There's some videos there they can watch that we've done, and I think they're pretty well educational as to how we're doing things. And the great thing is, like I said, we can do any lead that comes in. There's potential. I always say there's potential profit on every single lead. We don't throw leads away, and if we can make a couple thousand on something, why not? I mean
Yeah.
that buys the wife a couple more pairs of shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, John, thanks again for joining me today. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Let's not make it so long this
Yeah,
time.
it doesn't need to be another 11 years. Yeah, we'll be in.
Unbelievable. I still
Yeah,
can't believe that.
yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Everybody, hope you got some good value today. Sometimes you got to get creative to make those deals happen. So
Definitely.
appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you on the next show. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.